The fast-growing demands of digital era motivates us to continue improving the potential of integrated human resources that are capable to support productivity. This vast and rapid development needs an effective and modern learning solution that can keep up with the routines of today's society. A facility that can cope with the limitations of space and time. For many people, both limitations pose as major problems in developing themselves and enhancing their career in digital era. In the end, those problems will impact their lifestyle. Universitas Terbuka is here to answer those problems by applying an open and distance learning system. A system that has proven effective in increasing the coverage and equal distribution of excellent higher education for all elements of society. Our learning system. Our system allows students to have a flexible and open learning method, and it offers many advantages. First one is the registration period, which is open throughout the year, so no more worry about late registration. Flexible space, time, and place. This is useful for students who still want to develop their knowledge wherever and whenever they want. Easily access printed and digital teaching materials in all corners of Indonesia and other countries. Our system gives opportunity to people from all groups and ages to learn and develop their knowledge, as well as their skills in all fields. With 39 regional offices all across Indonesia and overseas service centers, we are always ready to support operational activities and cooperations with various national and international institutions. We have numerous facilities to support student activities and learning process. From UT Radio, UT TV, learning assistance to online library. Universitas Terbuka offers you 4 credible faculties: Faculty of Education and Teacher Training, Faculty of Law, Social and Political Sciences, Faculty of Economics, and Faculty of Science and Technology. With more than 35 study programs and postgraduate programs. Universitas Terbuka, making higher education open to all.
Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, akuntan profesional unggul, Indonesia maju. Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, IAI, telah berkiprah mendukung pembangunan SDM dan transformasi ekonomi Indonesia.
Akuntan memiliki peran penting dalam pembangunan nasional yang berkesinambungan.
Profesi akuntan mendukung upaya peningkatan profesionalisme SDM Indonesia agar bisa optimal berkarya mendukung pembangunan ekonomi yang efisien dan transparan. Melalui Prakarsa 6.1 yang telah ditetapkan sebagai program umum Dewan Pengurus Nasional IAI periode 2018-2022, IAI siap berkarya mengawal perekonomian bangsa ini menuju Indonesia Emas 2045.
Saya sangat mendukung rencana IAI untuk mempercepat program sertifikasi agar para akuntan di negara kita memiliki kreativitas, inovasi, keterampilan, dan memiliki daya saing, dan sekali lagi dalam rangka mendukung pengembangan ekosistem kita yang lebih akuntabel, lebih efisien, goal-oriented, dan inovatif.
Tanggung jawab itu terwujud melalui Chartered Accountant Indonesia sebagai identitas akuntan profesional Indonesia dan telah mendapat pengakuan kualitas secara global. Prakarsa 6.1 berisi 6 langkah aksi dengan satu tujuan strategis untuk memperkuat peran IAI dalam meningkatkan kepercayaan masyarakat terhadap entitas bisnis dan publik dengan menyiapkan akuntan profesional berintegritas siap menghadapi masa depan. IAI melaksanakan tugas dan tanggung jawabnya menyusun standar akuntansi keuangan dan standar profesi, melaksanakan ujian sertifikasi, serta aktivitas keprofesian lain mengacu kepada International Federation of Accountants dan Chartered Accountant Worldwide. IAI for Society dijalankan untuk memberikan manfaat yang semakin besar bagi masyarakat, serta untuk mendekatkan profesi kepada publik. Founding Fathers IAI telah menetapkan 2 tujuan pendirian IAI. IAI dibangun untuk mempertinggi mutu pendidikan akuntan dan meningkatkan kualitas pekerjaan akuntan Indonesia. IAI menguasai perubahan, menyiapkan masa depan.
Memasuki era revolusi industri 4.0, UT dituntut untuk terus melakukan inovasi agar dapat meningkatkan kapasitas dan perannya sebagai cyber university. Berbagai upaya yang dilakukan UT untuk meningkatkan angka partisipasi kasar APK perguruan tinggi serta pemanfaatan teknologi informasi dan komunikasi dalam proses pembelajaran merupakan tantangan sekaligus peluang dalam upaya meningkatkan kompetensi SDM bangsa yang berkualitas.
Hari ini, satu lagi tonggak sejarah perjalanan pendidikan kita pancangkan, khususnya di bidang pendidikan tinggi, yaitu dengan diresmikannya Universitas Terbuka.
Sejak berdiri pada tanggal 4 September 1984, UT dengan sistem pembelajaran terbuka dan jarak jauh telah menunjukkan karya nyata dalam pemerataan pendidikan tinggi yang berkualitas dan meningkatkan kesempatan belajar untuk semua. Peran UT dalam mengukuhkan konektivitas bangsa di era siber inilah yang diangkat sebagai tema di Disnatalis UT ke-35 tahun ini. Dalam kiprahnya selama 35 tahun, UT telah menjelma menjadi sebuah PTJJ yang modern. Saat ini, seluruh layanan kegiatan inti layanan mahasiswa dapat dilakukan secara fully online, mulai dari registrasi hingga ujian. Saat ini, UT telah menawarkan 40 program studi jenjang sarjana, diploma, dan magister di bawah 4 fakultas, yakni Fakultas Ekonomi atau FE, Fakultas Hukum, Ilmu Sosial, dan Ilmu Politik atau FISIP, Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan atau FKIP, dan Fakultas Sains dan Teknologi FST. Selain itu, UT juga menyediakan program sertifikat berupa program mata kuliah mandiri atau PMKM, program Massive Open Online Courses atau MOOCs, program pendidikan berkelanjutan, serta program pelatihan instruksional, PJJ, dan kemampuan profesional. Sebagai PTN yang menerapkan sistem belajar jarak jauh, UT berupaya untuk memberikan layanan agar mahasiswa baru mempunyai kesiapan mengikuti proses belajar di UT yang berprinsip pada belajar mandiri. Sejak tahun 2018, selain memberikan orientasi studi mahasiswa baru atau OSMB, UT juga memberikan pendalaman materi kepada mahasiswa baru agar lebih siap menjadi pembelajar mandiri yang tangguh melalui kegiatan pelatihan keterampilan belajar mandiri atau PKBM yang merupakan bagian dari kegiatan edukasi keterampilan belajar mahasiswa atau EKBM. Berbagai inovasi dilakukan oleh UT untuk peningkatan layanan pendidikan melalui pemanfaatan teknologi informasi dan komunikasi terkini agar mampu menjangkau seluruh kalangan, dimanapun dan kapanpun tanpa kendala. Bahan ajar sebagai materi utama dalam pembelajaran disediakan, selain tercetak juga berbentuk digital. Bahan ajar digital ini bersifat interaktif dalam format EPUB serta dapat diunduh secara gratis dan digunakan secara offline oleh setiap mahasiswa UT melalui berbagai perangkat, baik tablet, handphone, maupun desktop. Dalam rangka untuk memfasilitasi pemantapan hasil belajar mahasiswa secara mandiri, UT menyediakan pembelajaran secara online yang disebut tutorial online atau tuton yang bersifat asinkronus. Selain itu, tutorial bersifat sinkronus juga disediakan dalam bentuk tutorial berbasis web atau TWeb, e-lecturing, dan video conference atau VCon. Dalam penyelenggaraan ujian, inovasi dilakukan dengan pengembangan sistem ujian online tanpa pengawas ruang yang hadir secara fisik di lingkungan mahasiswa, yang disebut dengan online proctoring. Dengan online proctoring ini, mahasiswa dapat ujian dimanapun selama mereka memiliki akses terhadap internet. Selain itu, untuk mendukung kegiatan belajar mahasiswa, berbagai fasilitas belajar yang dapat diakses mahasiswa secara langsung antara lain UT TV, UT Radio, perpustakaan digital, materi pengayaan mata kuliah berbasis online, latihan mandiri, dry lab. Fasilitas lain yang diberikan UT untuk mendukung proses belajar online adalah fasilitas internet gratis berupa Wi-Fi ID dan Microsoft Office 365. Untuk memperluas jangkauan layanan hingga ke seluruh pelosok dan luar negeri, UT memiliki 39 kantor UPBJJ atau Unit Program Belajar Jarak Jauh di seluruh Indonesia dan Pusat Pengelolaan Mahasiswa Luar Negeri. Selain itu, UT juga bekerja sama dengan berbagai mitra untuk mendirikan sentra layanan UT atau SALUT di beberapa wilayah. Untuk menjaga standar mutu UT, secara kontinu UT selalu direview oleh Badan Akreditasi Nasional maupun internasional, yaitu oleh International Organization for Standardization atau ISO, Badan Akreditasi Nasional atau BAN-PT, dan International Council for Distance Education atau ICDE yang berpusat di Oslo, Norwegia.
Maka yang namanya e-learning kalau kita kembangkan, classroomless, borderless akan terjadi. Tidak ada lagi kelas, tidak ada lagi batas negara, maka pendidikan tinggi harus kita lakukan suatu perubahan yang mendasar. Pada saat kesempatan ini, yang sudah memanfaatkan peluang semacam itu, hanya satu-satunya di Indonesia yang pertama kali hanyalah Universitas Terbuka yang dalam hal ini.
Dalam upaya meningkatkan angka partisipasi kasar perguruan tinggi nasional yang masih rendah, berbagai upaya kerjasama dilakukan dengan perguruan tinggi atau instansi lain. Kerjasama ini sangat penting untuk menyukseskan program strategis Kemendristek-Dikti terkait penyelenggaraan pendidikan jarak jauh dan pembelajaran dalam jaringan yang akan semakin diperluas bagi perguruan tinggi lain.
Dengan capaian jumlah lebih dari 1,7 juta alumni, serta hampir menjangkau seluruh kabupaten kota di wilayah Indonesia dan 39 negara, terbukti UT mampu mengemban misi pemerintah untuk membuka akses pendidikan yang seluas mungkin bagi warga negara Indonesia dimanapun mereka berada, serta mengukuhkan konektivitas bangsa di era cyber.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greeting to all of us. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Muni Hastuti, and just call me Dias, and I will be the host of this webinar event today. And welcome to the third webinar of the Department of Accounting, which held as an international webinar, Faculty of Economics, Universitas Terbuka. Today, Saturday, October 17, 2020, we are presenting Intelligent Automation and Analytics, Shaping the Future of Accountancy, presented by Universitas Terbuka. And now I would like to extend my welcome and thank you to our excellencies, Professor Ali Muktianto, SE MSI, the Dean of the Faculty of Economics, Mr. Hendrian SE MSI, the Head of the Accounting Department, Ms. Norina Hartati SE MSc, as the Head of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program, Ms. Eli Sarni Hussein, CA, FCMA, CGMA, Asian CPA, Executive Director, AIA Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountant. Your Excellencies, good morning and thank you for your presence today and being with us in this webinar. And also committed team webinar who have worked hard from preparation to conduction in this webinar. Good morning all, keep spirit until the end. And I would like to extend my warm welcome to our three honorable speakers, both local and overseas, and also to our moderator today. Our first speaker is Mr. Arif Perdana, PhD, CA, Assistant Professor Business Information System, Singapore Institute of Technology. Good morning, sir. This is indeed a great pleasure for us to have you today as speaker from Singapore Institute of Technology. And then our second speaker, Mr. David Wang, PhD, CPA, CIA, Tri-House Fellow and Associate Professor at the University. Good evening, sir. To my knowledge, in the time in the US right now, I believe 9 p.m. And on behalf of committee team webinar, thank you for your presence as a speaker for the University, Chicago, United States. And also to our local speaker, Mr. Isnaini Ahtiyat, CACIA, Asian CPA, members of TPN, AIA, and China partner EY Indonesia. Good morning, sir. I'm optimistic that participants will acquire the new knowledge after your presentation. And to our moderator for today's webinar, Ms. Amalia Kusuma Wardini, SEMCOM, PhD, as moderator, the head of Magister Management Study Program, Universitas Terbuka, and lecturer of Accounting Department, Universitas Terbuka. And also welcome to all participants, both local and overseas, on today's webinar. Well, like us checking the number of the participants, we have really amazing. We have a large number of participants today. It's about 3,663 who have signed up for the webinar. Participants come from both local and overseas across Asia, such as Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Bangkok, Laos, and also from United States of America, Australia, Netherlands, and also Middle East as well, such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt. The number of the participants in this webinar is not limited and is free of charge. Our purpose that it can further disseminate knowledge to all parts of society without being bound by time for the sake of improving the quality of life for oneself and for the nation. Respected webinar attendants, on behalf of the committee team, I would like to inform to all participants that in order to keep the webinar productive and conducive, participants should only communicate through Q&A live event on the menu, firstly, and secondly, only presenter will use the camera and microphone facilities, and then lastly, that this event can also be watched live and on delay on TV, YouTube. And please don't forget, follow Instagram at Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia and repost about AIA Apafest. Please tag the AIA account when reposting. Thank you. And now I'd like to read all the schedule for today's webinar event and will be divided into 4 parts. And here's the agenda for the today's webinar. Firstly, opening remarks, speech from the Dean of the Faculty of Economics, continued by Executive Director AIA Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountant, followed by presentation of material from the 3 guest speakers and will be guided by moderator, and then Q&A session will be guided by moderator as well. And I would like to encourage all participants to take active part on this interesting discussion to be able to conclude certain policies related to the exposure conveyed by the speakers. All right, and stay tuned. And lastly, to fill in the feedback form as condition for the e-certificate. However, participants who have registered prior to the day of webinar will receive a webinar certificate in the end of the session, and participants will be asked to provide feedback related to this webinar for further improvement. That's on today's event agenda. Dear audience, it is time that we have been waiting for. I would like to invite Professor Ali Moktianto, SCMSI, the Dean of the Faculty of Economy, to give his opening speech. Professor Ali, please proceed, and you have 10 minutes for your opening speech, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I would like to extend my warm welcome and thank you to our three honorable speakers, Mr. David Wong, PhD, Associate Professor di Paul University, Mr. Arif Perdana, PhD, Assistant Professor Business Information System, Singapore Institute of Technology, Pak Isnaini Akhdiyat, selamat pagi, and member of EI Indonesian Accountant Association, and all participants who have been present today. The wonderful things today that it's our third webinar of the Department of Accounting Faculty of Economics, Universitas Terbuka, which is held as an international webinar. We are pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us for some time, as well as those participants from both local and overseas. We are very proud to be able to host today's webinar with all of you. Before we get started, I would like to express my gratitude to His Excellency Dr. Hendrian SAMSE as the head of the Accounting Department, Her Excellency Nurina Hartati SAMSE as head of the Public Financial Accounting Study Program, and Ms. Amelia Kusumawardani, the moderator of the seminar, who so generously helped us make this event come together smoothly, and so committed team webinar. We could have done it without you. Well, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ali Muktianto, SEMSE, the Dean of Faculty of Economics, Universitas Terbuka, as conveyed at the beginning of the event and has been delivered by the host. Today we have the total number of participants who signed up webinar is about 3,663 participants, and the participants come from both local and foreign, such as United States of America, Australia, and so on. And today's webinar we are presenting intelligent automation and analytics shaping the future of accountancy. As we know, that intelligent technology is shaping the future of accounting by impacting the types of jobs that will become available. As advanced systems handle much of the repetitive work, humans will deal with more of the analysis, becoming the crucial link between data and client. And for further explanation related to the webinar presentation on intelligent automation and analytics shaping the future of accountant will be presented by the speakers, and we will so get to know about it and more. That's the greeting from me. Thank you for Ms. Ali, Director Executive of EIE. And thank you for your participation. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for attending today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. I will now hand over to the Ms. Diaz. Ms. Diaz.
Professor Ali, thank you for your speech.
Thank you.
Let us continue, and then let me introduce Excellency His Ms. Ali Sani Hussein, CA, FCMA, CTMA, Asian CPA, Executive Director, AIA Institute of Indonesian Chartered Accountant. Your Excellency, you have your speech for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Economics Universitas Terbuka, Bapak Profesor Ali Muktianto, National Council Member of the Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountant and Senior Partner of EY Indonesia, Bapak Isnaini Ahdiat, our prominent speakers, faculty members of Universitas Terbuka, and fellow accountants and participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Selamat pagi. On behalf of the Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountant or IAI, please allow me to begin my remarks with a gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His grace of privilege and help to all of us attending today's webinar. Today's virtual webinar is truly a reflection of our commitment and ingenuity in dealing with the many restrictions that come with the pandemic. Through technology, we continue to shape the future of our profession, as identified in the theme for this webinar. My appreciation to our host, Universitas Terbuka, for extending the invitation to IAI to contribute to today's international webinar. Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountant is responsible for the regulation of professional accountants, including setting financial accounting standard, administering the Chartered Accountant Indonesia exam, providing continuing professional education, establishing a code of ethics, adopting professional standards, and maintaining a disciplinary system for members. As the recognized professional accountancy organization for accountants in Indonesia, we aspire to work with our stakeholders in developing every aspect of the accountancy profession in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, last month, IAI successfully held our first ever virtual National Accounting Symposium. Among the highlights from today's event was an encouragement from the Minister of Research and Technology, Professor Bambang Brojonegoro, for accountants to equip themselves with relevant skill set and focus on new opportunities, particularly those that are leveraging on technology. The same message was shared by the President of IAI, Professor Matiasmo, in his remarks. Accountants in the academy are playing an important role in creating a sustainable learning environment that make effective use of technology as a tool and platform and not a threat. Accountants are now providing insight from data, partnering with technology, becoming more than ever trusted advisor, and expanding into new areas. Essentially, delivering more value to business by focusing less on low-value, repeatable tasks and more on high-value tasks. As a professional body for the profession, we recognize the importance of focusing on priorities that are relevant not only for the profession but also our stakeholders. In December 2008, IAI launched the IAI Initiative 6.1, the roadmap for accountants and the profession in Indonesia, responding to new challenges and opportunities that come with the global disruption and change in the economic landscape. The initiative consists of the following 6 action plans: equipping accountants with multidisciplinary skill and competency, meta-analytical capability and social skill, updating the accounting education and curriculum to reflect development of technology and business disruption, establishing IAI as the spearhead in rejuvenating the profession, positioning the profession to overcome massive change affecting business environment, actively campaigning the profession as an agent of trust in safeguarding the integrity of financial reports, actively working with stakeholders in strengthening the integrity and ethics of the profession in accountancy practice in Indonesia, and realizing a legal protection for the profession, user of professional accountant services, and user of financial report. The 6 action plans are summarized into one strategic objective to enhance IAI roles in improving public trust towards business and public entity by preparing professional accountants to respond to future challenge and opportunity. A chartered accountant is empowered with a unique skill required to drive business decisions that help create better economy and community. CA is now recognized as a difference maker, particularly in today's fastly changing environment. As a difference maker, a CA can be an agent of change and contribute to his organization and or environment. Responding to the increasing influence of technology as a key driver that is reshaping almost every aspect of our life, the global accountancy profession recognized the need for preparing the next generation of accountants. EIE also recognized the importance of nurturing our next generation of professional accountants. They will be the future accountant equipped with the last know on how the profession. So that's why I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to participate in II Aspiring Professional Accountant Festival or APAFest, the biggest festival for accounting students in Indonesia with the theme Scanning the Horizon, Embracing the Future. I would like to humbly end my remarks with a call for action for all of us participating in today's webinar to take responsibility in and contribute to our collective efforts in building the capacity of our accountancy profession. We need to make sure that our next generation of accountants are ready and prepared to deal with the uncertainty that are changing our business landscape. Today is technology. Tomorrow, we may have to adapt to change brought by other factors or systems. For IAI, I humbly believe that all of our efforts are in line with the theme of IAI Initiative 6.1, Mastering Change, Preparing for the Future. On behalf of IAI, I would like to once again express my appreciation to Universitas Terbuka for the opportunity to share and learn from our speakers today, Bapak Isnaini Ahdiat. I wish you a successful webinar. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Your Excellency, Ms. Ali Salih Hussein, CA, FCMA, CGMA, Asian CPA, thank you for your speech, ma'am. Respected webinar attendant, that's the opening remark from Professor Ali Moktianto, SEMSI, and Ms. Ali Salih Hussein. Saturday webinar with the theme Intelligent Automation and Analytics, Shaping the Future of Accountancy, officially open. Before the event continues to the next session, let's take photo together. So please, respected attendants, open all the cameras. Open all the cameras. Everyone ready? Camera on. Once again, thank you. Okay, thank you very much everyone, and I will now hand over to a moderator to guide the presentation of the material from our three honorable speakers and also Q&A. Ms. Amel, please proceed. Thank you.
Good morning, participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the third webinar of Accounting Department Universitas Terbuka, Intelligence, Automation, and Analytics, Shaping the Future of Accountancy. I'm Amalia Kusumawardini, academic staff at the Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Terbuka. In today's seminar, I will be the moderator to host this seminar session. Well, we are talking about the topic of the century. It's intelligence, automation, machine learning, and in particular, how it relates to the changing job functions. According to a study of over 2,000 work activities in more than 800 occupations by the McKinsey Global Institute, released in 2016, the easiest jobs to automate are those involving predictable physical activities, and the next easiest jobs to automate include data collection and processing activities. How about accounting jobs? Citing the Telegraph, UK, accountants and auditors are amongst the most likely professions to be replaced by robots. So, new technology is changing the future of accounting. Seeing this situation, accounting profession needs to be ready. So, how do we prepare? To contextualize our discussion, today we have three incredible guest speakers, expertise in the data analytics, accounting information system, and IT auditing. So let's learn directly from our guest speakers where we're at with intelligence automation and how intelligence automation and analytics shaping the future of accountancy. I would like to invite the first speaker, Dr. Arif Perdana. Dr. Arif Perdana is assistant professor from Singapore Institute of Technology. He graduated and holds his PhD degree from UQ Business School, the University of Queensland, Australia, 2016. All right, without further ado, please welcome Dr. Arif Perdana.
Thank you, Bu Amalia, for the time. Okay, let me share my screen first. So is the sound okay? Can you hear my sound? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to be invited by Universitas Terbuka. I would also like to thank the webinar team who have organized this event. Today, I'm presenting this topic, Intelligent Automation in Accounting, Blessing or Curse. So when we talk about technology in accounting and audit, it could lead to both benefits and also burdens. So the technology, including automation, may seem initially beneficial, but also brings potential unforeseen negative consequences if not managed properly. So this is what I want to talk about in this webinar. Okay, so just a bit of introduction about myself. I'm Arif. I work at Singapore Institute of Technology. Prior to working in Singapore, I had been teaching in Australia, Indonesia, and Denmark. I used to work in the finance industry for 2 years before shifting my career into academia. And currently, I have some industry projects with Singapore organizations, accounting firm, and also startup companies. My areas of interest are data analytics, blockchain, fintech, and information system adoption. Some of my research work has been used by industry and organizations like RSM Singapore and also Institute of Chartered Accountant Singapore and one of startup companies, which is Crowdo. I've written one book about data analytics in Indonesian and will be released end of this month. And I also have another book in progress about automation in accounting. And it will be expected to release early next year. That's about myself. Okay, so this is my agenda for today's talk. Okay, so first I'm talking about technology trend in accounting, which is intelligent automation. So then I move on to reimagining accounting in the age of automation. So here I'm talking about how the accounting landscape may be impacted by automation. Then I describe the potential risk that may come from automation implementation and how should we mitigate the risks. All right, so let me open this talk by looking at how technology has been evolving in the accounting discipline. I would say that automation is not a new thing in accounting. So the automation of accounting tasks using technology has occurred even 100 years ago. So the use of technology in accounting started in 1907 from punch card machines. So the purpose of these machines is for data storage at the time. So over the next 45 years, which is in the 1950s, the data then stored on magnetic tape instead of punch cards. So at the time, the computer called the Universal Automatic Computer, or UNIVAC, was able to process payroll in 40 hours. So the time spent for processing accounting tasks at that time was considered fast, even though it took 40 hours. So I would say that the years before 1980 marked the era of calculation and data storage automation. And then the computer hardware for data storage and software operation then evolved quickly in the 1980s. There was multiple software available to help accountants, to complete their works, like spreadsheets, for example, at the time, physical, Lotus 123, Excel, okay, then accounting software like Peachtree, and also the first generation of ERP software, which is SAP R3. It was launched in 1992. When spreadsheet emerged in the 1990s, there was a concern about accountants' job. So the accountants posted a question at that time: will spreadsheet replace accountant? But you can see how is it now? Accountant remains survive, right, till today. But the way accountants work has changed significantly. So I would say between 1980 to 1990 was the era of the spreadsheet, accounting software, and ERP automation. Then in early 2000s, other automation technology emerged. They are automatic data capture and extensible business reporting language, or XBRL. Automatic data capture let the machine capture data automatically. So for example, inventory can be recorded just by capturing the barcodes, right? And another technology that I was mentioned before, XBRL, so it was developed to ease the difficulties for information exchanges between organizations and also across geographical boundaries. So now XBRL becomes one of the enablers for regulatory technology, allowing the organization to submit and file their financial information easily, right? So I would say in this period, we were witnessing data capture and data exchange as the enabler for automation. Then from 2010 to 2020, the technologies are rapidly changing. We see blockchain, machine learning, data analytics, and robotic process automations are among the technologies that are shaping the current and also future landscape of accountancy. Now, we as an accountant pose a question: would accountant be replaced by automation, right? So the same question that 20 years ago, accountants posed the questions about will spreadsheet replace accountant's job? Okay, so now let's look at robotic process automation. Okay, so what is this? If you look at this picture, it may look scary, right? So robots are replacing us as accountants and auditors. Okay, so the word robotic here in RPA doesn't actually refer to any physical robots. So robot here in RPA refers to a bot, okay? So bot here is referring to software agents acting as human beings in systems interactions. So this bot mimics users' interactions with computer applications when performing certain tasks in a business process or business task. So for example here, to automate financial statement comparison, checking the completeness of documents. So here, RPA has the potential ability to disrupt entire business function in companies. So accountants and auditors can make use of RPA to get the routine works and also mundane tasks done efficiently. So here, when applied to the right tasks, RPA can provide significant time and also money savings, because it allows actions and workflows to run autonomously without manpower. Okay, then you may questions. What kind of tasks that RPA can do? So basically, three things that RPA can do here: data movement, digital enablement, and data processing. Okay, so data movement here, RPA can be used to source, slightly transforming and loading data in or out of systems and tools, like from spreadsheet or documents. For example, RPA can move files and folders, copy or paste data, open, read, and create emails, extract data from documents, obtain human input via emails or workflows, and pull data from the internet. Then digital enablement. So here, RPA can be used to add a digital or mobile front-end applications, particularly to legacy systems that are challenging to interface with. So here, the example, like login to enterprise apps, and then fill in forms like tax submission forms, follow decision rules, read, write, update, and append databases, and also capture data from the screen using computer visions. Then data processing. Here RPA can rapidly perform repetitive tasks, which are otherwise done by staff to reduce cost, extra timing, improve reliability, and also reduce risks. So here the tasks, for example, perform math and stat calculations. So here you have to be aware the tasks that bots perform here are typically rule-based, well-structured, labor-intensive, standardized, and has digitized structured data input and high volume. So RPA nowadays can manage more complex tasks from multiple software, easy to be deployed, and also have robust underlying technology. RPA can be guided or unguided by human. So if the RPA is guided by human, so it is called attended RPA. If it is not guided, then the RPA is called unattended RPA. For unattended RPA, bots can automatically perform tasks. So it is based on schedule, time, or event. Now here I'm showing you how actually a bot can perform its works, right? So bot is structured like a flow chart, as you can see in the slide. So containing some activities, as you can see in the slide here, right? So this robot is developed using Blue Prism, one of the RPA software. Then when you run the bot, it can automate the activities that you have set up before. Then bot can be easily scaled up and also scaled down. So if the input to be processed is increasing. As you can see here, it's easy to be scaled up and scaled down if the inputs is increasing or decreasing, as I mentioned before. Then the other two examples here, this is just simple examples of how bots are developed. So this is using UiPath. So the one in the left is the bot to automate stock price analysis. So the bot here scrap the data from Yahoo Finance. Then after that, users will have two options, whether generating report using Power BI or Excel. And as you can see in the right, this one is for billing automation. So the bot will create invoices from client data, whether from Access, from Excel, whatever data sets, and send it automatically to client's email. So this is how actually the bots are developed and created. Okay. Here, I give you one example how RPA can be used to speed up a business task in an enterprise. So this use case is from consumer credit rating agency in Australia. So the company organizes, assimilates, and analyzes data on more than 500 million consumers and business worldwide. So it's a big company. And the company needs to process customer data involving employment checks. So here the data must be entered into some forms, and then these forms later must be sent to referees to complete with. This business tasks require 8 staffs and also almost 2,000 transactions must be processed in a month. So you can imagine it's a huge transaction. Once RPA is implemented, you can see here the impacts. 50% of manual work can be automated. And then business tasks 2, 3, and 4 here have been automated by RPA. Company can readily scale up or down the business processes, and also more efficient time taken to complete the business process. That's how RPA impact in a business process in an enterprise. So there are some benefits that a company may achieve when implementing RPA. So the first one is reduce costs. So nowadays, robot is equal to 3 human full-time equivalents, or we call it FTE. So this is based on the simple fact that one FTE works for 8 hours. As human workers, we are working for 8 hours a day, right? While a robot can work for 24 hours without any break. So the speed of the work being performed coupled with multitasking results here can lead to further cost reductions, right? So that's reduced cost. And then higher quality services and greater accuracy. So with reduced human error and also greater compliance here, the quality of work is much, much better. So using RPA, the detection of error is also much simpler. This is because every step in the automation process is recorded, making it faster to pinpoint errors with ease as well. Consequently, this means that greater accuracy of data and it leads to better quality analytics and also hence better decision making. Then permit companies to leverage employee talent. Okay, here because robots replace the routine and also repetitive tasks, companies can shift their employees to more interesting tasks that create more engagement to them. Scalability. Here, RPA is highly scalable, as I mentioned before. It can be scaled up and scaled down, whether one requires an increase or reduction in the virtual workforce. So robots here can be quickly deployed at zero or minimum costs while maintaining the consistency in the quality of work. And 24/7 operations. So it means that the company can perform their business 24 hours. So this is especially useful for interacting with customers. Then it can also create benefits on improve analytical decision making, because these robots can log each action taken with the appropriate tag and metadata. Then it's very easy to get business insight and other analytical data as well. Here, analytics can be done using the collected data, such as a transaction receive time and transaction complete time. Then prediction can also be made for the incoming volume and also the ability to complete the task on time. Improve internal control. So when using RPA, a full audit trail availability can result in greater compliance. So unlike human, robots here don't deviate from the defined set of steps or rules to be taken while doing a task. Therefore, it will certainly result in better compliance, right? And then increased speed. Robots are very fast, and sometimes the speed of the execution must be reduced to match the speed and the latency of the application on which these robots work. So increased speed can result in better response time. So here, more robots can also be deployed to perform the same task easily, okay? And then redeployment of these robot resources require less coding and also less reconfigurations as well. And then achieving these benefits is actually not an easy task in RPA, right? So RPA here is not a panacea that can cure every business process. So to achieve the full potential of RPA, organization must have solid business processes. Otherwise, the use of RPA in this organized business process just lead to catastrophic. Okay, as you can see in the quote here, as Bill Gates said, automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. Okay, so I give you one example here. Suppose that you run a small business for printing services, okay, and you want to automate customer order. However, at the moment, what you're doing is just serving the customers, let's say via WhatsApp. There is no dedicated web to allow customers to interact with you. Then additionally, you have not documented yet how long would be normally to process customers' order. Okay, so if you want to automate this customer order, you need to document how the activities flow in the process. What are the input needed, okay, and then the outputs produced from this customer order. So the discipline that can help organizations to manage and improve their business processes, prioritize their business process, and identify relevant processes to be automated is business process management. So business process management here also provides standardized notation, which we call business process modeling notation. So this standardized notation help organization to document their business processes and also identify inefficient tasks. That is why some of the critical requirements for a task to be automated, so the task must be well documented, standardized, highly rule-based, and mature. Okay. And there are other critical requirements as well, like the task must be less complex, low levels of exception handlings, and also has digitized structured input. As you can see here in the slides, so these are the examples of the tasks that can be automated. So some of them have high potential to be automated. For example, maintaining customer data. So this task is highly repetitive, standardized, and has low exception handling, meaning that it doesn't much deviate from the normal operation and procedures that may lead to unexpected behavior. So for those who have medium and low potential to be automated, as you can see here, like in inventory accounting, so because the processes and tasks here contain many exceptions. Take the example, transfer pricing. So it's not easy to automate these tasks as you need to deal with sometimes what we call as vague transactions, or the transaction that could have multiple interpretations, right? So here, transfer pricing requires judgment and exception handling. So it's difficult and it's hard to be automated. The one that I was talking about is the simple RPA. It's just simply RPA. The next generation of RPA is called intelligent automation, or IA. So other than AI, artificial intelligence, so there is another buzzword here, which is intelligent automation. So IA here emerged due to collaboration between traditional RPA, analytics and intelligence, and also Internet of Things. So traditional RPA is simply rules-based, right? As I explained before. When it is combined with analytics and also intelligence, supplied with massive amount of data, so then the bots will be getting smarter over time because they can learn from the tasks that they have done before, and the data and also the environment where they are working on. So three things that intelligent automation can do here: sense, process, and act. Okay, so intelligent automation can easily identify and extract any information from multiple types of documents using the technology here, like OCR, NLP, and also computer vision. IA here can collect data or automated data entry, right? Then the data collected can be further processed using machine learning algorithms. So the main objective of intelligent automation is to improve customer and employee experience and boost productivity. And additionally, it also generates time and cost savings, significantly reducing human intervention in the process cycle, and also allows employees to have more time to focus on creative improvements, strategy, making decisions, so on and so forth. So another objective for IA here is the reduction of errors in the processes, as well as reduction in paper usage as well, since this IA trend is completely oriented towards purely digital management. Okay, so here is the examples of how IA can be applied in accounting and business. So it can be applied to anti-money laundering, or know your customers, AML KYC. So as you are aware of, banks handle several processes and checks for AML and KYC, and these have been increasing and getting increasingly complex over the years. So what used to be addressed and identified checks earlier have now evolved into more complex screening and also monitoring-based periodic checks and also risk assessments. So here, RPA can retrieve customer and counterparty data from internal systems, external sites, and also internet search result based on prescribed procedures that can be coded, right? So once the data is retrieved, then the RPA bot can be programmed to identify risks, and also the data here is trained and modeled using a machine learning model. Later, the result can help decision makers to identify the risk level of the customers. For account reconciliation here, I and also NLP to extract the data from banks, and IA can also easily extract relevant key fields from the financial statements. It can generate a consolidated data set and directly link it to a data visualization software such as Tableau, ClickSense, or MicroStrategy. IA can also help companies to comply with standardized reporting template. Relevant information is extracted, then transferred to the standard report, for example, for taxation purposes. So here, tax authority can also use IA to extract any relevant information and model the data using machine learning algorithms. All right, so nowadays, there's a lot of RPA software in the market. So these are the commercial software, but some of them have community versions that can be used for teaching and learning purposes. Among these multiple software, 3 of them are leaders on the market. They are UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prisms. These three RPA has also public versions which are free to use for teaching and learning. And other than this commercial software, there are other open source RPA like TechUI, Automai, Help Systems, RoboCorp, Tasks, and also Links. Okay. Now let's talk about the work of accountants in the age of automations. Okay, so as I mentioned before, there are multiple benefits that organization may realize from RPA implementation. So RPA is now gaining momentum, right? So some of the consulting companies have done some surveys about the potential of RPA in the companies. Like here, RPA impact on business process, right? RPA would impact on cost reduction. RPA reduce entry-level roles and increase mid-level roles. So it means that there will be a shift from hiring low-skilled resources to more qualified professionals. A lot of business tasks here can be further automated, as you can see from McKinsey report here. 2 hours FTEs, which is human worker, could be replaced by RPA in 2025. Now the questions. Are companies ready for this RPA journey, right? These are the realities. So not many companies have started their automation journey enabled by RPA or other technologies. Only a handful of companies have succeeded in their RPA journey. And also enterprises remain lacking on skilled employees to transform their business process to be automated, right? So in general, there are three most pressing challenges in implementing RPA. So first, organization inability to prioritize potential RPA initiatives. It is difficult for them to pursue the best application of RPA. And then companies concerned about cybersecurity and regulation. And then lack of available talent. So that is why some of leading companies are now making an effort to train their existing employees in RPA. So they partner with consulting companies or tech providers and identify new sources of talent outside their organizations. Okay, so looking at the facts that I mentioned, then should we be scared of RPA? We have to realize that a lot of RPA initiatives often start with accounting, right? So because accounting contains a lot of processes that are high transactions, repeatable, well-structured, rules-based process that lend themselves to RPA. So RPA here can provide a level of stability in dealing with those types of tasks that are mundane. So RPA will help accountants to focus more on those higher values instead of the repetitive work. When we talk about reimagining work in the age of automation, we need to consider three things: people, process, and technology. So people are strong in reasoning, understanding, fluid thinking, but they have limitations. They can be biases and inconsistent. Technology is excellent at storing information, identifying pattern, and also number crunching. But technology has limitation too. They cannot do reasoning, okay? They cannot actually learn, they just follow rules-based, right? Technology doesn't understand things. They only follow things which are rules-based. Unfortunately, technology can be biased as well, based on the data provided to them. Okay, so here, the process can mitigate human and technology limitations like transparency, regulatory control, and also privacy. So because both human and technology have limitations, so RPA wouldn't necessarily take over the jobs of accountants. However, what would be impacted is the role of accountants, which is defined by the process here. Accountants' job would be repurposed, okay, where some of the roles are more focused on exception handling rather than the routine processing of transactions. So here, RPA remains lacking in its capability to handle judgment and decision making. For example, if it involves intuitive decision making, then RPA cannot do that. So when a bot, let's say, performs a process, so there's going to be areas that process needs some subjectivity, validation, or judgment. So here, accounting person would be responsible for performing an action based on the results coming from a bot. Okay, then they can pass that back off to the automated process. So here, there's still that element of needing that knowledge and skill set that companies have with their accountants to some extent. So I would say that there would never be a full 100% automated process. So humans still needed in the process, right? In the future, we might see that some traditional roles like financial planning and analysis, financial controller, and accounts payable clerk will be less and less conducted by human, because the portion of their works here are largely repetitive and routine, right? And in the future, there would likely be emerging roles like a digital enabler, business navigator, process and control expert, and storyteller, okay? Data analytics storyteller. So these roles will help the industry to help them to enable automation and analytics, guide the processes, business processes, and keep themselves in the control loop of automations. Okay. Now let's look at the risk management of automation and analytics. When we talk about risks, we must consider people, technology, and process as well. They are interrelated and can create risks for organizations. So let's look at in details, okay? So from people perspectives, people can potentially create risks like unethical behavior, irresponsible act when using technology, careless act when managing organization data that can lead to a data breach, right? To mitigate this challenge, organizations need to develop policies that enforce employees to act responsibly and also promote the ethical use of technology. In terms of technology, technological trust and cybersecurity are among the critical issues that could emerge. So technology here can create more efficiency, speed up any business processes, help to pursue data-driven decision-making. However, technology may entrench societal bias as well that already exists. So we have witnessed technology bias risk occurred, right? At the same time, the implementation of technology creates dynamic cybersecurity challenge for organizations as well. So how to mitigate these potential risks? So humans need to understand how technology works, and this process must be explainable, including the process flow and also algorithms. So with regard to cybersecurity, the mitigation is not only enhancing the security layers of the technology, but also create a rigid policy that enforces people to act accordingly to the policy. Okay, so when we talk about the process, okay, there are two potential risks here: the formulation of digital transformation and policy, okay, and many companies have started their digital transformation journey. Some have been successful, some others are failed, right? So digital transformation must be judiciously formulated. Otherwise, the misalignment between organization's goal for digital transformation, let's say using automation here, and employee values and behavior could create new culture risks. So here, regulatory and policy should be formulated to accelerate the digital transformation, implementation guidance, and also mitigation policy for any potential risks that could emerge due to technological implementations. All right. I think that's all what I can talk. Now, back to the title of my talk today. So, intelligent automation in accounting, blessing or curse? Well, it depends on how we implement the technology, right? To overcome the challenge and mitigate any potential risk that may occur due to its implementations. So here, I would like to say the closing remarks. Technologies are not just tools, they are becoming your co-workers. Robots may soon replace you to work on your tasks. If you don't want to be replaced by robots, don't work like robots. Okay, so you will be paid in the future based on how well you work with robots. That's why you must have skills to control and understand robots. I think that's all that I can talk for today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Arif. That's very interesting talk. Thank you for sharing the fruitful information with us, how new technology is changing the future accounting jobs. It's always interesting to discuss. Yeah. So now robots are coming for our job. They're coming alongside us and taking up our routine tasks, freeing us to move into a more advisory strategic role of accounting. Yeah. So if you ignore the pace of change, you may left behind. All right. Before we continue, I would like to remind the participants. So if you have questions, please write your questions using the Q&A feature in the Microsoft Teams. We will select the questions from Q&A box in the Microsoft Teams. The selected questions will get the souvenir from the committee. So please mention your name and affiliation and to whom the question is addressed. Okay. Well, in the earlier presentation, Dr. Arif has explained how technology has changed the way we do our work in accounting job. Next, our speaker will talk more specific about how automatic intelligence affects the auditing job and how can data analytics be made integral to the audit. I would like to invite Dr. Tawe David Wang. Dr. Tawe David Wang is a Dry House Fellow and Associate Professor from DePaul University, Chicago, Illinois, United States. He graduated from Purdue University and holds his PhD degree 2009. He is now serving as Midwest Region President of American Accounting Association, and in 2018 served as KPMG James Marwick Professor in Residence. Well, without further delay, we're inviting Dr. Tawe David Wang for giving his presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. And let me share my screen. Yeah, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee for organizing this great event. And thank you all for joining us today. So I'm going to talk about the use of data analytics in auditing. So before we start, just a little bit more about myself. I mainly teach analytics, data mining. I do research in IT management, security risk management. I have been a regular speaker at universities, conferences, for example, the Institute of Internal Auditors. I have just talked about the use of analytics in management accounting with the Institute of Management Accounting Association as well. There are several exciting things I've been doing. For example, I regularly organize student projects with companies' internal audit functions. So I take my students out for 8 to 10 weeks working with their senior manager or the VP internal audit. Just try to solve an existing internal audit objective or try to explore the different data analytics possibilities for the companies. It's quite exciting to have this opportunity. And I'm currently listed on the Fulbright specialist for developing accounting curriculum about data analytics. Last year, I happened to have a chance to talk about cyber risk at a Federal Reserve Bank's workshop. So really thanks all for having this opportunity to join us today. Okay, so how come that analytics becomes so important or some trendy in recent years? So one of the issue is that we start to see a lot of data or the explosion of data in recent years. So for example, here, we actually have 40,000 searches processed every second. So as you can imagine that that's a huge information demand that people are searching for all kinds of information. It can be product, it can be company, it can be just anything, right? And even more amazingly that about 4 million videos are viewed on YouTube every minute. So you can imagine that. So in this case, it's not just the YouTube videos. We have all these viewing activities, all these comments, discussions, and all these interactions. And the last thing is that we have about 156 million emails sent every minute. So you can imagine that that's a huge network of machines and people trying to communicate to each other, right? So the key thing that we're trying to deal with here is that, so how can we make sense of this huge amount of data? So analytics is one way to help us to make sense of it, and then we can probably extract insights from the data, and then we can use it for our decision making, or especially for business decision making. So I believe that everyone here probably has a totally different definition of analytics, but to me there are only two things. One is about patterns, one is about the business operations behind all these patterns. Okay, so the first thing is about patterns. So what kind of patterns are we talking about here? So there's a really simple one. So it's more like I give you the buckets, I give you the categories like this. And when I receive a new information, for example, that's my cat, right? Then I will be able to actually try to grab this new information and see how I can fit into these different buckets. So for example, in this case, my cat can fit into this brown tabby category. His eyes is more like yellowish, greenish, right? And then we have the black paws or brown paws. But actually patterns are everywhere. Patterns can be anything. Okay, so let me give you several examples. So if you wake up in the morning and you try to brush your teeth, do you always start from your right-hand side or do you always start from your left-hand side? That's a pattern, right? And it's always quite consistent. And one of my students may say, hey, professor, I don't really brush my teeth in the morning, but that's fine. That's also a pattern, right? So brush is one pattern. You don't brush is also another pattern, right? So similarly, when you walk into a huge theater, auditorium room, your classroom, do you always have your preferred seating area? Right? You always try to pick those seats because it's just like those places, right? And it's quite consistent across time. And we can have something a little bit more complicated. For example, you are trying to go to your office, you are trying to go to school from your house. Do you always take exactly the same route? So you can actually have a turn-by-turn image in your head. You know that when I'm at this intersection, I just turn left. When I go to the next one, I just turn right? And it's quite consistent. So as you can see, that patterns are everywhere. And then because of this kind of pattern or this kind of behavior, it's quite consistent across time. That's why we can use patterns for decision making, and we can use it to actually do some predictions as well, right? So for example, here, imagine that the rounded head is one piece of information, and the body down here is another piece of information. So in the past, I collect all these 12 scenarios. When I see this combination, I know that at that time, I said no. I'm not going to agree with that argument, or I'm going to turn down the mortgage application, for example. In this case, still the rounded head, and I have a grayish body here. In this case, I say yes, right? So you collect all these different pieces of information or different combinations of information, and you try to figure out the decisions you made in the past. So this is the data, or this is the pattern we have from the past. Now I receive, for example, a new mortgage application. With this combination of information, are we going to say no, or are we going to say yes? Right? So we can actually take a look. So we have this pentagon head here. So I try to find the pentagon head from the past. I have one here, that's yes, one here, and I also have several down here. I only have 2 no's here out of 8. So I'll say, 75% of the time I will say yes. How about the body here? So I have here the no and the yes and the yes. Okay, 2/3 of the time I'll say yes. So I just put yes here. But if you think about this a little bit more, you can say, hey, wait a minute. How about the no case that we faced in the past? How come that we say no in that case, right? So when we get into the future, when we get into the predictions, we have more uncertainties. There are different scenarios. We also need to consider those potential errors. And are we comfortable with the errors? So for example, if I can tell you that the prediction accuracy is really high, but only 90%, are you comfortable with using that predicted information for your decision making? Right? So we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we get to the later part of the presentation. So once we know that, okay, this is the pattern I can get from the historical data or whatever that is happening now, the second thing is actually this is more important, is about the business operations. So data analytics is called analytics because there's always an underlying business operation, always an underlying business problem that we want to achieve or we want to solve, right? Without that, the data itself doesn't mean that much to us, or actually it may cause some strange confusions. So for example, here, hey, you may say the number of people who drowned by falling into a pool is correlated with films Nicolas Cage appeared in. And this is highly correlated. This one is probably more than 90%. But wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, right? So that's the whole idea, right? So if I have the data set, I just put them together and say, hey, I can see some patterns here, but that's not going to help you too much. Right? We need to have a really specific operations in order to match to the data in order to provide meaningful results. So the question becomes, so how can I tie these patterns to the business operations or the questions that we want to answer? So let me give you an example here. You drive into a community, the road is pretty wide and it is pretty straight. You may see there's a speed limit saying that 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour just down the road. Probably we don't see a lot of slow down traffic there, right? People may just drive and nice weather, road is really wide, it's straight. We'll just do that. But the people here may say that, hey, we want to find a way to actually slow them down because it seems that the traffic sign or the speed limit sign is not working. So how can we do that? This is a little bit exaggerated, but if I try to make the road a little bit narrower, it's kind of wavy. You cannot really see what's leading you to. You cannot really see what you are going to face. You are going to slow down anyway. With or without the speed limit sign, we just slow down. So what's the key concept here? So I'm trying to explain that because of the design of the infrastructure that can actually change our behavior. The same thing, right? We have all kinds of incentive schemes. We have all kinds of internal control mechanisms. We have a lot of rules. We have all these operations that we implemented in a company. So all these schemes, rules, all these control mechanisms can actually change how we do the business, can actually change our employees' behavior. So when you try to look at the patterns that we collected from the data set, you are going to see that, oh, because we have this kind of rule, that's why we see a totally different behavior. So for example, if you put a limit, say, for example, if a transaction that is more than $10,000, you need to have 2 signatures. I want to see another one from your supervisor. Okay, that's fine. Then you suddenly observe that, hey, there are so many different transactions, just try to control between $9,000 and $10,000. So when you see that pattern, you will be able to connect to that specific control mechanism and saying that, oh, probably that's because of that mechanism that caused this behavior, right? So in this case, we will be able to actually link the patterns to specific business operations that can actually facilitate the whole business decisions. Okay, so how can we categorize different types of analytics? So I always use this Gartner's analytics maturity model here. So the easiest one is called descriptive analytics. That is, are we able to describe what has already happened or what is happening? So for example, I can tell you that, hey, I observe a sales revenue increase in the past 5 years. That's a nice observation, right? itself doesn't help that much, right? We want to know, hey, how come or what's the driving force that we can see there's an increasing trend in sales revenue? That will be the diagnostic analytics. And more importantly, I want to know that, hey, what's going to happen next year? This is probably a crazy year, so if we take out the pandemic, what's going on for the next year? That will be the predictive analytics, right? And the next step will be, we know that this is where we are now, and based on our prediction, that's something we can do for the future. How can we move ourselves from here to somewhere we want to be in the future? That will be the prescriptive analytics, right? So you can see that when we get into the future part, when we get into the strategic directions, the difficulty level will increase. But the value for our increase, for our decision making will also increase as well. Okay, so let me give you several examples in auditing. So there are some obvious ones. We have the structured versus unstructured problems. The structured can be really standardized. For example, I want to test the completeness of accounts receivable, existence of inventory items. I just want to do a count. I want to know whether there's any unmatched records, ghost employees, unauthorized vendors. These are quite structured, right? So we are facing actually more and more unstructured data and decision nowadays. So for example, we have a lot of unstructured data. For example, the social media we just mentioned, we just heard, we can have a lot of different industry level data. For example, you can have customer complaints, you can have product recalls. All these are quite unstructured. We can also have unstructured things that we need to deal with, right? So the problem is not that straightforward. So for example, you receive an email from your CFO saying that, hey, David, I noticed that the accounts receivable doesn't look right. Something's wrong. Can you take a look and try to figure out what's going on there, right? So that's basically just one complaint, then that's the whole problem we're facing. Okay, so actually analytics are able to help us for all these kind of unstructured problems as well. Okay, and here we have an example about how we can test access control policies. So it's not just about access control policies, it can be all kinds of internal control policies. Okay, so we just heard something about the RPAs. So actually I'm trying to show you something that we can do with the internal control policies, and we can actually put it into really simple RPAs here. So the context is we want to see whether the access control policies have been followed. So for example, I can give you the server's access log. So I know that the person logging at this specific time, and then this is time this person logged out. I know the records this person was trying to access, update, delete, insert, okay? And then I also have the employee records, I have the access control list or the authentication record, right? So we can actually write a really simple code. Actually, this one was super simple. I just use it a case where I just do a script and I can run through everything automatically. So as you can see that it will start to import the file, and then based on the all the objectives that I want to achieve, it will automatically go through all the tests I want to test, generate the results that I need as a file. So I can actually just go to there and then just try to check and see whether there are any exceptions that may cause all these issues, right? So, and we can actually apply this idea to all kinds of different internal control policies, but there are limitations. I'm going to get into that pretty soon. Or there are some more complicated things. For example, we can do contract mining. What's the meaning? So for example, for some of the auditing jobs that we actually need to review all kinds of contracts. So for example, if you work for a cell phone carrier, then in that case, you have all this kind of, you have the standardized one, you have those customized contract. So there's no way the auditors can read through 200 different contracts and still remember that, oh, the 51 is different from everything else. It's just not possible, right? So we actually have a different, more advanced tools that can actually help us to tell us that, okay, for each contract, these are the clauses or the standard ones or the paragraphs we can see, and we can actually compare them across different contracts, and the program can tell us that, hey, this one looks different, this one has an additional paragraph about something else, you need to take a look, right? So auditors will have a chance to actually focus on something that we need our attention the most, right? We can spend more time on judgment and assessment instead of burying all this kind of a huge amount of data. The last thing is that we can actually do something even more. So we really don't need to have those rules anymore. So for example, this is something I did with my students for a company earlier this year. So this is the company's request. Hey, David, we want to do something like this. I'm going to give you all the transaction data for the past year. I say, okay. Then, without having any rules, without having any specified descriptions, can you just run through these transactions and tell me that, hey, this 30 transactions or this 50 transactions, they don't look the same as others. Something's different from them. So these are just anomalies. Can we spend more time with these 30 or 50 records, right? And yes, we can do that. We can use a machine learning, or most specifically deep learning, to actually extract the features from these transactions and then just put them into 2 different categories, right? And then we can actually tell you the features we use, and then the company can see whether these features make sense or not. Okay, so there are lots of different things that we can do with the analytics, because then now we are able to use the tool to extract a lot of different patterns. So what's the impact here? To me, that analytics is not really something that can cover everything. So nowadays, it's more like we need a combination of skills. So we still need to do interviews. We still need to understand the business processes. We need to talk to the business process owners. We need to review documents, right? But nowadays, now we can probably do something a little bit more. We can use the interviews to guide our data analysis strategies. We can use the data analysis to find the patterns, to find out the directions that we may be able to go to, right? Then we can use a combination of skills to provide a richer evidence that we want to have, or to address the business problems or the objectives that we want to address, right? And we heard this a little bit earlier. So there's actually a changing role here. You probably have watched this movie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, a while ago. So nowadays, for this kind of routine job, for example, putting the cap on each toothpaste, it's going to be replaced by machine. But our role is changing, right? We can actually be the person who can tell the machine what to do, and more importantly, we can design the routine, we can fix it, we can change the whole algorithm, right? So we're still trying to do similar things, but the role is kind of different nowadays. The next thing will be the interpretation and recommendations. So interpretation can be tricky here. So once we have the information, the next thing is that, okay, so what's the meaning of this pattern? How can I provide actionable recommendations to the partner, to my client? If you're an internal auditor, how can I report this back to the chief or the executive, or to the executive team, right? So we really need to understand what's behind all these patterns, so we can better interpret the findings. So it relies heavily on our accounting knowledge, our business knowledge, to make sense of it, okay? And another thing is that we need to convert that technical term into a knowledge or into a language that the executive team can understand, so they can make better decisions, right? So for example, we're not going to talk about, oh, this is the algorithm we're using. We try to combine all these data sets, and then these are the findings I have. I have these 2-3 outputs. But yes, but it's not that straightforward to understand what's going on. So we need to help them to prioritize things, we need to help them to understand that, okay, if we have limited resources, these are the things we can do. So in this case, the value of the data can increase dramatically, right? So what is the value here? It's not just about using analytics to complete a checklist. We still need to do that for compliance. That's just something we have to. But for the internal audit side, it's more like an internal consulting group that we can actually help the company to grow. We can help the company better based on the insights we can get from the patterns. Okay, so there are biases and errors. So Arif mentioned this as well. So biases comes from the data set, right? Depending on what kind of data you're using. It also comes from us. So we have our own assumptions, we have our own considerations based on our educational background, based on the learning background. We may look at several dimensions of the data set and say, this is the reason why. Or even worse, we only look at one dimension, then we jump to the conclusion. So there are biases, not just from the data, it's also from us. There are errors if you're trying to predict the future, right? So we have the false positive rate, we have the false negative rate, but which one may cost you more? So for example, you're trying to use it to predict a fraud, and then the system tells you that this is a red flag, there are some possibilities about the fraud, and you just report it saying that, hey, there's a high possibility of fraud, but it turns out that nothing's there, right? The cost can be really huge, right? So how can we actually live with all these biases and errors? That takes some time, and then we need to find a nice balance there. Okay, challenges. The first thing is that we need to understand the benefits and limitations. So benefits, we can now do a lot of different things with all this exploration of data sets. We can try to understand a lot of things in a really quick way, or sometimes it's just one snap and then you have all the information you need. But there are limitations, at least so far, that the machine is still working based on our algorithm or our thoughts. They are not really learning and then do everything by themselves. We're not there yet, right? And there's sometimes that we need to work with the data scientists or the IT department. We have totally different trainings, so we're talking about different languages, and sometimes we just treat data differently. So for example, as an auditor, when I see a missing value, the first thing I have is, hey, how come that there's a missing value, right? That's a red flag. But for data scientists, they can probably tell you, oh, here are 5 different ways that I can recalculate the value and then just plug in something there, right? So we think a little bit differently, right? And sometimes we need to talk to the engineering team to understand the design, to understand the manufacturing sites, business processes, and the information we're collecting. So we have to be able to work with them as well, right? And the last 2 are actually critical here. One is that we need to think critically. You may notice that I didn't really talk about the tools here. That's because that it's more important if we can spend more time to link the business operations and the data. How can I address this issue? What kind of information do I need to have, right? What's the best way to obtain that information? And how can I interpret the findings and provide actionable recommendations? That's the critical thinking part. It may take you several years before you are comfortable with that, and then you are comfortable with working the data. Okay, and the last thing is that in this field, actually, you are going to see a lot of uncertainties here. So for example, you may generate a really nice visualization for your executive team, but no one understands what you are doing. That's fine, right? You just found a way that doesn't work, or try something else. So there are a lot of uncertainties, especially when you are trying to do predictive modeling. The directions can be ambiguous. You may try to hit a moving target. You keep changing things because you're trying to do some data explorations, or sometimes the information is just not available right at this moment. So there are some challenges here, but we need to learn how to work comfortably in that kind of environment. Okay. So I would like to conclude my presentation with this quote from Gary King at Harvard University. So big data is not about data. So what's the meaning here? So the big data is not really about the data itself. We know that there are lots of different possibilities we can do now. So it's not about the data, but it's more like we now have the capability to make sense of it. We can extract the insights we want from all this data analysis. And we have easier to understand tools. We have all these super straightforward tools or a lot of different capabilities that we can leverage on in order to make sense of it, right? So we can be really excited that now we can do a lot of things and hope those things can facilitate business decisions. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for joining us today. Let me give this back to the moderator. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David, for sharing the insightful presentation. Very interesting. Big data is not about data, yeah? Seeing the kind of auditing jobs you have explained, clearly that less likely for auditors to lose their jobs in the near future. Since auditing is not based solely on collection data, all the activities and further analysis and understanding from the auditor is required to conclude. For example, how to linking the patterns with business decisions, the financial statements presented fairly, have the internal control policy been followed. I believe that within the fields of accounting and auditing, nobody wants the machine to make decisions about the financial future of the company. If that machine is wrong, who's going to take responsibility? Aligned with the topic earlier discussed, auditing firms need to address how transformation will alter their approach to doing business. How could technology platform be developed? And to connect large audit teams, how could auditors drive value through innovation? To answer such questions, we have a guest speaker, expertise in IT governance, auditing, and advisory. I would like to invite Mr. Isnaini Ahdiat. Dr. Isnaini Ahdiat has been serving his career with Ernst & Young for 28 years and currently posts as partner and managing partner Indonesia market, Ernst & Young Consulting, PT Ernst & Young Indonesia. He is now a member of National Board, the Institute of Indonesia Chartered Accountants, IAI. He holds his master's degree from University of Indonesia, and he is currently pursuing his doctoral degree in Accounting Information System from Pajajaran University. Well, without further delay, please welcome Mr. Isnaini Ahdiat, CPA CIA, for giving his presentation.
Well, okay. Thank you, Amalia. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the previous presenter who presented intelligence automations and some about the big data analytic. So my part will be more emphasis in the big data analytic, and allow me to present these materials to you. It's not many, it's just like 8 slides, and I have 2 videos that I think is important for us to understand. So allow me to prepare for this slide. Let me confirm to the moderators, is my slide now is presented to the screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I'm an Asian CPA. I'm an EY consulting partner, have been there for about 27 years. And I'm currently in the National Council Board of the Indonesian Accountants. This is very important topic regarding the intelligence automations. And I think everyone is wondering, there are so many terms that we learned today with regards to digital and IT, and this seems to be like a new term again and again, right? So we need to understand what the concept means about the intelligent automations. And then the second terms in here is about analytics that I'm going to emphasize the big data and analytics. So there is the word called shaping the future of the accountancy. And I think this is what people really look forward, how we can position accountants in the current challenging environment and how to make us still relevant. So I'm a panelist 3, so I'm gonna present about the big data analytic, and I think this is also will transform the role of accountants in the future. So let me refresh first what was discussed about the RPA and AI. This is again an abbreviation of robotic process automations and artificial intelligence. And I think we got a sense already about what is robotic process automations, whereby it's more an attended automations that is, we as a human being still, observing and involved in a particular process. But a lot of our clerical work has been automated, right? So, but AI, talking a bit more, is an unattended automation. It's a form of technology. It will replace the human labor and automate end to end. Yeah. So this may be the things that worry and create a concern with many people, especially accountants. Our role will be really impacted and replaced totally. Yeah. And to make it clear of the combinations between these two concepts, whereby the RPA is using the structured inputs and logic, and AI is using the unstructured inputs, and it developed its own magic. So they call it, there is a sub-branch of AI called machine learning. That means machines can keep learning and keep making improvements on the way this machine is functioning, right? So this really an advancement in terms of technology, but both of that, when the RPA gets into more handling the complex situations and AI is coming into that, then I try to put it in a simplifying to say it, an intelligence, which is an artificial intelligence, and an RPA is an robotic process automation. It becomes an intelligence automation. So it's not just an ordinary or a common automations, but there is an intelligence automations that the solutions will be able to recognize what things that can be more automation than currently or than in the past. So it is really has an impact in terms of our working environment, in terms of all the process, the productions, all the process in the company. Okay. I'd like to move forward to talk my part, and the question is always be, what will the future look like for the accounting graduates? And secondly, I'm gonna cover this big data and analytics, which I think is a big opportunity for the future accountants. And then need to learn about what is the minimum competency and the specialized skills that accounting graduates need to possess, as also required by the industry and the international companies. So this is a description about what is disruption that is happening. So you see on the upper left, there is a stage 1 and a stage 2. And I think the discussion so much is about artificial intelligence and robotics, but at the same time, actually there is a growing an issue about the sharing economy platform. So it changed. It creates a new term called the gig economy. So there are many non-employee or freelance worker, temporary assignments. That is an impact that this sharing economy is currently occurring. Yeah? So we will be seeing more and more people with contracted or non-permanent things like that in the coming future. So it is regardless of what artificial intelligence, but that's the conceptual things that currently the economy and the business as well adapting. We have seen this a lot about that we do sharing, because we've seen that some particular assets, for example, is not fully utilized. Then we make it more utilized by allowing other people to use that assets, right? So this is also similar to what our properties that we have here. So we can also lend our land, cars, and many properties that we have. And stage 2 is talking about the artificial intelligence and robotic that will create the so-called the machines economy. That is really, when we talk about machine economy, where is the labor, right? So See, it's a massive labor disruptions. It's human labor displaced and supplemented, and jobs is unbundled into tasks. Jadi it becomes a smaller task than rather than a job. So maybe in the future, people is not looking for the job. They are looking for the task, and the employer will provide tasks rather than the job functions. So this has been a statistic. So the white collar and creative works not immune. That means that they'll also be impacted, and it creates a job loss. In reality, it's just this is a statistic that I have for the 2020. So it's really changing the landscape of the environment, the gig economy and the machine economy. But if you see somehow, if you talk about artificial intelligence, the research that we do, and this is my EY Global Assurance Innovations leader, Jan Bowley, says that artificial intelligence has the potential to transform, if you're an auditor, transform an audit, but it will never replace the auditor. So there are parts that always should be done by human being. So on the bottom part at the left, is really talking again about the disruptions, not only for business, but also the government and the society. For the business, is the disruptions into the business model, that they need to find out what is the right business model today that can respond into the changing customer behaviors. And then the government and the regulators needs also to adapt to remain relevant for the future of work. Yeah, and the society itself, it has an impact for sure about the income inequality. So this all creating a kind of worriness for the business, for the government and the society, and at the same time, every one then think about how we can transforming the world, right? Okay, so before I move forward, I have this video I need to pass it to you. Just a moment. Yeah, this is the descriptions about how the human being is interacted with the robot.
Isnaini, the video is not showing. I think you have to share the video instead of the Windows Explorer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna share this video, yeah? Yep. So through this video, I think the key message of the video is for the human being to keep being relevant. They need to keep their contacts, their intuitions, kind of that, because those things that is clerical will be replaced by the robot. But then the conclusions of the video is that cooperation, collaborations, we just need to adapt with the new environment whereby many more automations will happen. We will encounter robots together, but you know, we should be different as a human being. Yeah, so we shouldn't be afraid of this robotic and automation kind of that. We need to create them to make sure that it will generate a more efficiency to our economy, to the business, and to the welfare of the people. So I will come back with my presentations. Okay, just to confirm the moderator that my slide is seen on the screen, right?
Yes.
So let me come through to this big data, and many misconceptions about the big data because of the word big, right? So, but then it was clarified already by the previous presenter. It's not just about the volume, and more than that, big data that doesn't mean a lot if there is no human being conducting an analysis of it. It is true, it's more than just a volume of the data. So you've seen here on the upper left, the volume is only one of the aspects of the big data. There are some other variety, veracity, velocity, and some other publications has some another V. You know, it may come up to maybe 8 or 10 V. But to make it simple, just to understand this 4 V's first, which is volume. Yes, it's confirmed to be very big. In the past, we recognized this megabyte, gigabyte when we exchange the data that is in the USB that we have or in the hard disk. We use terabyte, but there will be coming petabyte, exabyte, and many other zettabyte and so on, you know, and that's gonna be for our next generations to use that terms, not us, right? So, but we should be able to realize that the size of the data is getting larger and larger. How is the machines and our solutions will be able to proceed with the data? How is the capacity of the processing will be able to do an analysis of this big data? And then if we talk about the variety, we know that there are 3 categories of it. The structured data, if you see at the bottom right, which is very straightforward. There is name, age, and degree. Those are the data that commonly we use internal in the organization. And it is very easy for us to make a calculation or processing based on the structured data. But the semi-structured data will be different. So there is a kind of like tagging. There is like a database in YouTube. Yeah, there is a tagging. It's not that easy to make a processing. Yeah, but this semi-structured data is in existence in our environment, in the internet and many others. And there is another challenge, which is an unstructured data that is available. Of course, I mean, just like this document, just like a document, for example, consisting of the text saying the university has 5,600 students and John's ID is number 1, he is 18 years old. How can we use this data? How can we make that this data is available for the processing? So it is a challenge, but we want to be able to process on that data. So that's what we want. So that's why there is a lot of solution coming up to make sure that we are not only able to process the structured data, but also the semi-structured data and the unstructured data as well, because we are not patient enough to come up with the solutions. Yeah, and the data is there. It's not only structured, semi-structured, but also unstructured data. By having an expanding the category of the data, we are able to have a larger data set, and it will allow us to do a more quality of the analysis. And then veracity is talking about the truthfulness of the data. So the data is getting large and large, and there is semi-structured data and unstructured data. But then it's also important for us to verify whether it comes from the truth resources, whether the data is valid. So it's very important to realize that when the data is getting bigger in terms of size, And in terms of type, we need to be able to be very careful in terms of understanding. There may be data that is invalid, that is coming from not truthful sources, things like that. And finally, it's about velocity. The velocity talking is about the speed of the car. That's why there is a picture of the car. So the data coming at a very high speed. So if we don't have a system, they are able to make capturing the data. Then we are failed to recognize the situations. Yeah. Just for example, the traffic on the streets. If we are able to capture it, then we are able to do some kind of analysis about the traffic and the bottleneck. If I'm the property manager in the mall, I can capture the movements of the visitors in the mall. Then I'm able to recognize in which point that is the traffic coming most, and where is the place that I think I need to put promotions stand in the particular location. So it's very important to understand that the data is getting more and more in terms of volume, in terms of the type or the variety, but we also need to understand about the veracity of the data, and also important to understand about the velocity or the speed of data that is coming. So that's allowed me to come up with the best solutions ever, which before we cannot do that. Right? Okay. So in terms of an analytics of the data, I think this is like a gradual from the bottom to up, right? So we use descriptive analytics to understand from the data what's happening. So, but then it comes up to the top, talking about how many, when and where, why did it happen, where should we look, and then after those data is with us, we can still continue with building up a model in terms of the patterns of the data. And based on the patterns, we will be able to predict what will happen next. And then even we make a scenario about what if we try this, for example. This is similar to like, because this is pandemic, right? So it's good to give this analysis. What if we try these vaccines to the human being, for example? So we make a kind of that modeling, and then what is the best action? So it comes to the stage whereby the data today can also be used for the predictions, and even more than that is for the prescriptions. It's like a doctor. So in the past, maybe we are very limited into the existing data and limited into one category of data. And that's why we can only do a kind of like describe of what the situation is happening and only conduct a diagnostic. But today with the data set that is getting large and in terms of type, we are able to do prediction as well as prescriptions. So this big data will also give us, a potential for us to make a decision, and action is not only insightful, as I presented just now. It's not only about descriptive, diagnostic, or predictive. It's even more, it will create a prescription. And the artificial intelligence will also allow us to make not only getting an insightful information, not only making a decisions, but also an actions that is really more progressive. That's something that is really people are waiting for, that there is good actions rather than not just a decision, because decision, if not implemented or executed, it doesn't mean anything somehow, right? So yeah, so with this all data modeling as well as the artificial intelligence, it will move forward our activity from getting insightful information, and then we can make a decision, and even more we can conduct an action. So this artificial intelligence can really help us in terms of like an executions of the decision. It doesn't necessarily mean a human being conducting a follow-up. So for example, I follow up things, but it can create or trigger an actions by a robot. It can create an actions of a program of the computers. So they will react. They will make an autopilot. So we already learned this in the stock market, whereby the machines can do trading. So we call it algorithmic trading, algo trading, and there is an autopilot for a flight. So this is a kind of data that can be modeling, and with the interventions of artificial intelligence, it will create a series of automated actions. So that's going to be creating an opportunity actually for the business and for the economy, as well as a person who should be able to develop a model that is actionable. So this is the descriptions of the top 10 drivers for the organization. So if you work in a corporations, what are the top 10 drivers for the organizations to implement the big data analytics? So at the top is the customers, is to understand the customer better. So with looking at these drivers, I think this is a trend, and our positioning in the company should think about the same directions, which is if majority thinks about this understanding the customer is important, then there is a value in it. There is a trend that this data can be used to understand the customer more and more. Yeah? So that will create innovation in terms of many things, product creations, product delivery, service delivery, and many others. And then this data is also used to improve the products and services, and a lot of other drivers in there, including to improve the detections at the bottom and preventions of fraud. I think accountant is very familiar with this. Yeah. So if you look at this, however, yeah, let me show this conclusion. While 41% of respondents recognize the importance of cross-functional working, so it's only near to half for delivering successful big data project. However, it's just only 23%. So it is 1/4 of the organizations have implemented an organization's-wide data strategy. That means there is a big opportunity actually, in fact, in our organizations to implement an organization-wide data strategy. So that means also 77% of organizations, yeah, should take a chance to implement an organization's-wide data strategy. That means it can't only be functions by functions, but data in the company that is considered as the new sources or the new power today. We can leverage the existence of data in the whole of the organization to formulate or to form our strategy much better today. So what will be really the requirements for the accountants? So this is a summary of what the skills that is required for the big data analytics. So preparing us as an accountants to be able to respond. So the multiple programming skills. So it's good to have one skills in terms of programming, but let's be realistic that there are so many programming languages today that we need to understand to master. And then number 2 is data visualizations, the ability to visualize the data so that create an insightful informations. And then analytical skill, and in particular is a quantitative skill. And then the way we handling the data and interpret it. Handling the data means also we need to understand where the data comes from, and then how we make the data becoming in a good quality, and then allowing this data be able to come into the next stage, which is processing. And then number 5 is understand that there are multiple technologies, and we need to come up with a framework to understand how we respond systematically with the existence of the big data today. And finally is the problem solving. Of course, we need to keep sharpening our skills in terms of the problems. And I always remember that my colleague, he is an entrepreneur. He likes to identify problems every day. So problems for him is an opportunity. So there is problem, there is an opportunity to innovate and make the organization, make his organizations becoming in a better shape, becoming more innovative. We are able to provide more efficiency, effectiveness, and increase the quality of service to the customer, and many things. So by improving the skills in terms of the problem solving, recognized, and we should see the problem as an opportunity. I think that skill, if we have it, we are able to improve the way we take our role as an accountant, and especially in this big data takes opportunity. I think that's at the end of my presentation, and thank you. I will refer back this to the moderator.
Well, thank you, Pak Isnaini, for giving such encouragement about how AI affects accounting job functions. We agree that intelligent technology is shaping the future of accounting and auditing by impacting the types of jobs that will become available. As advanced systems handle much of the repetitive work, humans will deal with more of the analysis, becoming the crucial link between data and the client. Well, we have reached the end of presentation session. Now we open discussion session. Please allow me to remind the participants that you may raise the questions by using the question and answer feature in the Microsoft Teams. Okay. Now let's have a look at the questions. First question coming from Rustandi from Bengkulu City. He addressed the question to Dr. Arif Perdana. The question is how to ideally work with a specialized accounting machine to run according to user expectations. Please, Dr. Arif Perdana, to respond to the question.
Okay, thanks for the questions. Okay, so how to ideally works with a specialized accounting machine to run according to user expectations, right? I think to be able to work with machines that align with user expectations, so the machine must be programmed or developed according to the rules that the user expected. So otherwise, how we can work with program that actually we are not developing to run based on the rules that we are programmed to them. So when it involves machine learning, for example, the algorithms must be explainable as well. So if the outputs produced are not the same as expected, then we need to check whether the data is relevant or not, because the data itself can contain bias, and also the people itself, as David mentioned before, the people itself can create bias. Okay, so here we need to be aware of about the flow, the algorithms, and how programs works, how the machine works, and we need to modify the model and also look at the data, and then look at how we interpret it. I think that's all from me. Hello? Excuse me, the moderator, Bu Amalia, that's all from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Here, Dr. Arif.
Yeah.
Now, we move to second question. From the second question coming from Supianur, he addressed the question to Dr. David Wang. She's asking the challenges in shaping the future of accounting today are very tough, one of which is technology. Many accounting information technologies are sold by well-known companies, making it difficult for a new accounting graduate to work. How do we stay on the axis in this industrial revolution? Okay, please, David, to respond to the question.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the question. So as I mentioned in the presentation, you may recall that there's an image from that movie, the chocolate factory thing. So I think the goal here is that we need to know that our role is actually changing. So how can we make sure that we have that competitive advantage So that means we're different, of course, in a good way, right? So if we're able to understand how those things are working, are we able to design them? Are we able to utilize or leverage those things to help us to make more complicated decisions? For example, all the judgments and all the assessments. In that case, this actually, the revolution you mentioned here can actually be a great opportunity here for us to actually bring more value to the market and then try to increase the value we can provide to the job market or even to this whole accounting industry. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, David. This question, I think it was not complete without having perspective from the. So I invite also Dr. Isnaini Adia to respond the question number 2.
Well, thank you.
Supianur.
Thank you for the question, Devi. The question is, has this accounting information technology been implemented in Indonesia? I think yes. I've encountered these situations whereby, the data is no longer a structured data, but a semi-structured and unstructured. And also a lot of data analytics that's been employed or deployed in reality in terms of conducting the work, yeah. And the standard is also requiring foreign IT auditors to be involved whenever the auditors face the complex and IT environment in their client, especially for the auditors. There is a standard requiring them to involve the IT auditor or a specialist in their audit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Isnaini. I think, okay. The second question is from Supianur. It's already response. Next question is from Devi Ayu Putri Churait. Also a question addressed to Mr. Isnaini Ahdiat. Please.
Yeah. This question has been addressed just now from questions from Devi Ayu, right?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe if you have another question to me, that's fine.
Okay. So let's next to the other question, the fourth question. The fourth question is from Olivia Idris. Olivia Idris is one of our colleagues in accounting department. She's asking, she addressed the question to Dr. Arif Perdana and Dr. Tawiwan. She's asking if we want to apply AI in higher education institutions. What are the benefits and challenges of using AI to promote student success, improve retention, and manage resource in higher education?
All right. I think I can start first. So the implementation of data analytics into the accounting curriculum, I think it requires careful considerations. Okay, so there are several problems that must be answered here. For example, what kind of skills must be taught so that students are able to engage in data analytics, and what courses are relevant for data analytics? Is it necessary to have separate course for data analytics, or is it enough to integrate data analytics topics into existing courses, for example? And what technologies should be used to teach data analytics? And is data analytics concerns solely with the use of software for data analytics? So I remember that one of the articles in the Journal of Accounting Education proposed 3 strategies for integrating data analytics into the accounting curriculum. So the first one, focus approach, and then integrated approach, and hybrid approach. Okay, so the first approach here requires separating data analytics courses from existing accounting courses. So its application is carried out by creating new courses such as programming for business analytics, introduction to programming, audit analytics, accounting analytics, or Python or R programming. The second approach is integrating relevant data analytics topics into existing accounting courses, because some universities, they don't have, I don't say some universities, most universities, they don't have much space to create new courses because of the accreditation requirements. So what they can do is, let's say, embedding the analytics topic into the existing courses. So data analytic topics here actually already exist in the courses that are commonly found in the accounting education curriculum, right? So let's say in the accounting information systems course, so the discussion of relational database, right? So can be expanded by adding data modeling and also structured query languages. In management accounting course, for example, the topic of analyzing company performance and also operations can be expanded using data analytics software such as Tableau, Power BI, whatever, okay? And auditing courses can also be added with data analytics topics in the auditing using computer-assisted auditing techniques. And so that's the second approach, right? For the third approach is a combination of the first and second approach. And then I would say here, the choice of technology becomes the next challenge for applying a course related to data analytics in accounting. So what needs to be underlined here, technology is a tool to solve problems. Okay, so technology must adapt to what topics to be taught, not the technology that we bring, then we align with the topics, but the topic should align with the technology. Okay, so teachers or professors here must master the technology first before teaching it. So this is a difficult challenge, as some software can take some time to master, even it's just the basic one. And then here, before teaching software, professors must provide students with a solid theoretical basis for understanding, not teaching how to use the technology first, but solid theoretical basis. So when they switch to other, let's say, similar software, when students switch to other similar software, so hopefully, so students can adapt quickly. For example, teaching students to use Tableau. So the basic principles of data visualization and analytics must be introduced first. Otherwise, we just teach them how to do, how to use Tableau, not how to apply Tableau in the accounting concepts, right? So after that, teach how the software works. So if the students already have these basic principles, then they can quickly adapt to other software, whatever software. It can be applied to data analytics visualization, RPA, and whatever. Okay, and also about programming here. So because this raised questions as well. So there is a debate whether accounting students need to be taught programming skills or not. Okay, so those who support it claim that equipping students with programming skills has certain cognitive benefits, right, including increased reasoning, creative thinking, and math skills. And also some of the big four accounting firms also suggest that basic programming skills benefits accountant in the future. So I would say that what the accountants or accounting students to have here is to be able to understand how program works. At least because, let's say, in machine learning, there are a lot of packages, module, libraries. So at least accounting students can modify the packages and then use it in the relevant accounting problems. They don't need to be like a IT guys to program from the scratch, to code from the scratch. They can use existing packages, right? And then later on, they can use it for accounting problems. I think that's my thought in here. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ari. What do you think, David?
Yeah, sure. Let me address the second half of the question here. So can we use AI to promote student success, improve retention, and management resources? I think DePaul has something that is probably not AI per se, but we try to leverage the data that we can have to promote student success, improve retention. So what we're trying to do is that are we able to flag several features that may show that the student may be falling behind? so we can start to help them a little bit earlier. And then at the same time, it may improve retention as well. But I think the biggest challenge we're facing is that we need to have enough data points before we can really understand all the possible features or factors that may result in a higher dropout rate. Let me put it in that way. So in this case, we're still trying to do that and then try to combine the data set from different areas in order to better understand that. Right, so I believe that this can be really helpful for the higher education, just for helping the students or guide them more, or try to combine the academic advisors or professors or even the parents in order to help them to make sure that they will have a really successful experience and make sure that they can graduate as expected or really graduate on time. So definitely believe that we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for responding the question. Now let's move to the fifth question. The question is from Eliawati from UPBJJ Jakarta. She's asking how can an accountant work professionally using technology that is now an essential requirement during a pandemic. Okay, I think let us hear first from Mr. Ismaili.
Well, thank you, moderator, to allow me to respond to this question. To work professionally using technology in this pandemic, I think we should be able to be more using empathy and utilize all this technology to make sure that our work is still in a good quality. Just for example, for the auditors, we are cooperating with the client to be able to observe from a remote locations using a drone, for example. So that will make us possible to see and conduct an observations of the situation in their factory, in their plant. So it still make us possible to perform our procedures so that it will meet an audit objective. That is one of the illustrations that we can continue working professionally using the technology.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Ismaili. We have already listened from the perspective of a practitioner. Now let's listen from the perspective of academics. I think, please, Dr. Arif Perdana to respond to this question,
Yes,
and then followed by Dr. David Wong.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So I think I just want to say shortly here. Accountant needs to understand technology and keep abreast with the emerging technologies. Okay, so however, here accountants need to be aware technology is the enabler and it cannot do all of the work, right? So for example, when I was an accounting graduate, I learned just spreadsheet. It's very minimal. Okay, so what I have was just the understanding of manual accounting works. But now when teaching, I have to teach my students about data analytics, machine learning, and also RPA. So here is to equip my students to be able to keep abreast with the current technology, and then so that they are ready for their future career, right? Then if you know how technology works, then you are able to work professionally with the technology. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arif. What do you think, David?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the question. So let me put it in a different way. So to me, that the pandemic is actually a really nice way for us to revisit or reevaluate our business continuity plans, right? Do we really have the platform to perform everything remotely? Do we have the bandwidth to do that? How can we still keep everything secure? And then do we have enough digitization records, or is everything has already been digitized? So in that case, we will be able to still work professionally, but still keep us in a safe location, right? So actually, to me, that this is a great opportunity for us to actually try to just jump one step ahead, and then try to make sure that we are really ready for the future if we run into this again, or just in any case, we actually can be more flexible, or we can actually deal with the other different challenges or different constraint requirements. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. Now let's move to the sixth question, addressed to all speakers. The question coming from Harry Respati. He's asking how to keep plan the risk management process based on automation with generalized business process. Meanwhile, risk management function depends on judgment. So yeah, I think we give the first opportunity to David to respond the question. Please, David.
Sure, thank you, and thank you for the question. So to me, that I think that it depends on which part of the process we're trying to address here. Are we trying to just try to identify the vulnerabilities? Are we trying to identify the threats? Or are we trying to get into the detail part, trying to analyze it by each element and see what kind of risk we are facing, and then try to rank them and then try to prioritize our resources, right? So a part of it can be automated in order to identify the key areas, or try to automate in order to do the ranking. But at the same time, it requires a lot of judgments when we try to put them together in order to match into the resources or investment strategies. So we are able to better protect different information assets that we want to protect, or try to reduce the risk to the acceptable level. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. Now we would like to hear from the perspective of practitioner. What do you think, Pak Isnaini?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think in the risk management, we need to understand the process. First of all, is identifications of what are the risks that matters to the organization. And secondly, after identifications, is how we assess that risk, whether it's really impactful or less impactful to us. And then finally, after assessment, is the mitigations of it, the approach to respond into the risk itself. So from all of these things, if I can go back to the first step, which is on identifications, we need to understand that there are two layers basically. One is the strategic risk, and secondly is the operational risk. So if you talk about automations, I would rather say that in the operational level, operational risk management, the automation can play more roles in terms of their contributions, because there is a possibility for this automation in terms of like having the risk registered into our applications, and to get to know, for example, how many risks that we have assessed completely, how many risks that we haven't completed conducting an analysis or responding to. So there are a lot of these risk management tools today that we have to realize that we can adopt and utilize. So I have, for example, got about maybe more than 10 risk management tools that is very useful. But in the upper part, which is not an operational risk, but a strategic risk, I have a tendency to agree with Harry Respati. The strategic risk will require a lot of judgment. Yes, just for example, the strategic risk is defining what is the risk that matters to us when we're deciding about the strategy. So a lot of scenario that will involve more human being than this automation. And another type of in the risk management is emerging risk. Emerging risk is including things like this climate change, And then this pandemic is also emerging risk coming up. So that kind of things will require a lot of adjustment from us. Besides the data that is available, but we have to think carefully and make this scenario. So strategic and operation, in the operation, a lot of automation that we can do in terms of like registering the risk and able to come up with a dashboard or a summary about the risk registration and how are we responding to that. So yes, a lot of adjustment that is involving human, but there are some part that still the automation can play a role in this.
All right. Thank you, Pak Isnaini. What's your opinion, Pak Arif?
Okay, thank you for the question. So I just want to add up a bit here. So we need to be aware of here, automation cannot solve everything here. Let's say if the automation involves machine learning and then it is used for risk management, as we are aware of here, risk management involves judgment and decision making. So we have to be aware that machine learning, they are doing better for identifying and memorizing, okay, but they are still lacking the ability for understanding, interpreting, and abstract thinking. So this is where human is still needed for risk management, judgment. All right. So that's why for the risk management, it cannot be fully automated. So human is still needed for interpreting the result and do the abstract thinking. Okay, that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arif, Pak Isnaini, and David. We still have one more question from Andy Yusril. The question is addressed to all speakers. He's asking, related to our discussion topic about intelligent automation and analytics, what are the challenges of corporate social responsibility disclosure and activities, such as the design of the information system, etc.? Probably the first opportunity, let's hear from the perspective of Mr. Isnaini.
Okay, thank you for the question, Andy Yusril. This is a question about the corporate social responsibility and the design of the information system. So I've been seeing that the corporate social responsibility is connecting with the topic of sustainability of the company, right? So if you talk about CSR, people can easily see that this is something that is intentionally coming from the company, or is it coming that because of the compliance into the regulation? There is regulations on this, yeah. But more and more today, the company will see that at least they have to consider both sides, so their intention and their compliance. And in the terms of the reporting, because of these compliance requirements, they should prepare a report on that corporate social responsibility under the sustainability reporting, right? So time by time, this accounting requirement will require us to report more than just a financial statement, right? So there will be a sections in the annual report that consists of the sustainability, and in it there is a CSR activity that is there. And also time by time, the company is measured in terms of their sustainability performance. So if they do good CSR, their sustainability scoring will also go up. So what is the relationship with the design of the information system? In the sense of that, this annual report or these communications to the stakeholder that is required, then we have to come up with the information system design that is able to produce not only about financial statement, but also the non-financial statement, which will involve those activities that requires us to report. Yeah, that's for example is the CSR and any kind of the sustainability actions that the company has done. So the design of the information system must be able to provide what are the activities that is done by the company when they conduct a CSR. They have to come up, and then more than that, it's not just only about reporting the activities, but connecting to the scores, because today many corporations is measured in terms of their sustainability performance. So there is a measurement that is coming up lately in the World Economic Forum, and this all the big four accounting firm, EY, KPMG, Deloitte, and PwC also come up with the ESG type of scoring to let the corporation disclose and get the investor do a scoring of the performance. That is a consideration by today investor. When they see whether the performance of the company is good or bad, they will consider that and see not only the financial statement, but the sustainability sections of reporting.
Thank you, Pak Ismaili. What a fruitful information. We heard from the perspective of practitioner. Now let's hear from the perspective of academics. What do you think, David?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Let me add a little bit here. So I think the challenge nowadays is more like we actually have a lot of different external data that may affect our social responsibility performance. So for example, when we talk about labor protection, we can actually get a lot of information from the social media. So for example, people are complaining about our policy, people are arguing about whether we are really trying to protect our laborers. We can actually see the average salary of our competitors, though we don't really know who they are, right? So I think the challenge now is more like people are actually being able to see that how we perform compared to everyone else in the same industry. And they can actually see our workers or employees or how we are doing by reflecting through, for example, social media or other data sets, for example, product recalls, complaints I mentioned earlier, right? So it becomes not that straightforward if we try to incorporate not just the information we generated internally, but also about all this environmental or this kind of outside information, but within the context. So I think that would be the major challenge these days. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Dr. Arif, you have
Okay.
opinion?
Okay, thank you for the questions. I just want to address from the process perspectives because Mr. Ismaili has talked about in the practice side, and David already talked about data, right? So we agree that robotics is cost effective if it is implemented at scale. Okay, but the problems here, as I mentioned, so some companies, they are still struggling to prioritize which business process to be automated, because the business processes here contains many business tasks. Okay, so if the process is already documented, well structured and standardized, then there should be no issues for the companies, right? But then if the companies is still struggling to understand their business process itself, and then how can they automate their business process and then extract it into detailed business tasks? So this is a challenge as well for the sustainability. If they already have mature and standardized business process, and they can sustain the use of the robotic process automation. Otherwise, I don't think robotic process automation would create more optimized business process and also create maximized benefits to organizations. I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Dr. Arif, David, and Pak Ismaili. Now we have reached the end of discussion session. We do apologize, cannot answer all of the questions arise to the panelists. I guess all the panelists have given the fruitful explanation. We do hope that they answer your questions. For you whose questions were selected, please keep your eyes open. The committee will give you a notification in the chat room how to get the souvenir. Now, please allow me to sum up our discussion today. In this climate of innovation, accountants must adopt. In order to survive, accountants need to redefine themselves as strategic advisors Technology like AI and machine learning tasks that take up hours every day, allowing accountants to move into big picture advisory roles. Accounting firm of the future will use automation to become more efficient, communicate key insights to client, and continue to build their reputation as trusted advisors. So accounting's future is bright. Not only does the future of the accounting profession look promising, but the industry is also rapidly evolving with the rise of technology. The truth is, change won't end. With automation, technology will continue to advance, and the accounting profession will continue to change up for a tough challenge in the years ahead. But if you learn new skills, stay open to new technology, and anticipate that you'll be rewarded with greater opportunities and a more fulfilling role. Okay, that's the end of the session. We thank you to the three incredible guest speakers, Dr. Saweda Siswang, Mr. Isnaini Ahdiat, and Dr. Arif Perdana for sharing with us their valuable expertise and experience. Greatly appreciated. And special thanks to all the participants for your attention and participation in this webinar. We do hope that what we have discussed today is useful for you. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I return the session to the host, Ms. Diaz.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Amel. And we have seen incredible presentation for all speakers, and also very amazing explanation or question from the questioner. And now I like to announce the winner for the selected question. There is a 7 questioner that selected to be the winners. First, Rostandi from Bengkulu. Second, Supianur. Third, Dewi Ayu Putri Sirait. Fourth, Olivia Idrus. Fifth, Eliati UPBJJ Jakarta. Sixth, Harry Respati. And 7, Andi Yusril. So the committee team will contact all the selected winners, and really very sadly that this webinar has ended, but all participants still have something to do, that is to fill in the feedback form for this webinar in condition for obtaining the ES certificate, and then the time limit is about 15 minutes for this end of the webinar today. And also the link of the material can be downloaded, that we can show now on the screen, on your screen. And once again, thank you for your team committee and all parties who helped make this international webinar success. We ask for your understanding for any mistake we made, and ask for your feedback as soon as possible. Look forward to our next webinar scheduled to be held on November 2020, and thank you. In conclusion, I wish His Excellencies, Honorable Foreign and local speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, great success in your future. See you next time. Have a nice day, and goodbye.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for having me in this webinar. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. David.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Terima kasih. Thank you
Terima
all.
kasih Pak Isnaini.
Banyak Pak Isnaini.
Thank you David. Thank you Pak Arif.
Thank you.
Thank you Dias.
Terima kasih banyak
Thank you,
Dias.
Amel. Thank you so much, everyone.